Hi everyone, my name's Lily and welcome to Small Talk. So I didn't totally expect to be filming today, but then when I saw that schools in Scotland and Wales had closed and that I thought I should catch up with the government update later and see if I could add anything to yesterday's video. So people that are new here, I did do a video yesterday. It's a longer video. It explains all about what's gone on in the in the government response to the coronavirus outbreak from last week to their early stages of their policy to now, well, yesterday and everything gearing up. And I just wanted to add on to that today, but I will link a video about yesterday and also everything from before, and I'll put it in the description box as well so you can check those out. Okay, so I just want to talk about Boris's, well, I don't like saying Boris, I want to talk about Johnson's latest conference that he just did, because obviously everybody's expecting some huge changes to be made because everyone's anticipating schools are going to close. Is London going to go into lockdown? You know, now that we've seen that cases are rising, especially in the capital. So what did we find out? Well, I want to just say, as an observer and as a commentator, that really he struck the wrong tone at the beginning of the conference, and I think that he sort of worked that out at the briefing. He sort of comes through and goes, I'm here to tell you about the fight back on Corona. And then it's like, do you know what? No, this isn't funny. Like, I know that so much of the way that you try to connect with the public, for better or for worse, I'm not going to put an opinion on the way that Boris Johnson likes to connect with the public. Like, some people do like that sort of lightheartedness, and we all know about British humour. But it just sounded so out of place. Like, there's so much confusion. There's so many things that people don't know. Like, this isn't a superhero movie, you know, these are people's lives and livelihoods and everything else. Anyway, so then you start to hear this tone change and he starts to talk about how, you know, how strong and how much he needs people to stick to and how much he needs people to follow. And I was thinking, okay, here we come with the legal enforcements. But the next thing that followed was the advice. And I'm literally at this stage like, what do you mean, the advice? Like, we're still in that stage of following government advice, but kind of like the onus is still on individuals and the onus is still on businesses. There's no sort of top-down directive going on now. Like, isn't that what's supposed to happen with leadership in a national crisis? I don't know, I just came from watching it, so I'm probably way more fiery and way more unfiltered than I usually am, but whatever. Anyway, so that advice was reiterated. Stay at home and the whole household needs to stay at home for 14 days if someone thinks that they are showing symptoms. I mean, like, we are a country that is the nation of the understatement. So it's not often that people, you know, the British psyche is going to be there calling attention to themselves and be like, yeah, I'm totally sick. I have coronavirus, definitely. I actually feel like people will always understate what they're going through and always feel like, oh, maybe I should squeeze another day in at work. Well, that squeezing another day in at work puts potentially at risk however many other members of the knock-on effect that they come into contact with. So I still think that at this stage, to still allow people to essentially self-diagnose and then ask people to stay in their houses for 14 days when they may not have it, like, what? Anyway, then the second part of the advice, you know, I just can't get over this word, advice, is to avoid gatherings of lots of people. You know, just avoid gatherings of lots of people. Maybe I sound quite bitter because I'm living in Barcelona and so I'm under the Spain lockdown. So I've been in quarantine, I'm on day 4, which is why I'm so excited to talk to you. But no, I mean, this avoid, you know, no, ban it, prohibit, you know, this is playing with fire, in my opinion. I'm not a scientist, but like, everywhere else in Europe has got total school closure, and then there's other countries like France, Spain, Italy, and more that are entering or have partially entered complete, you know, a lockdown of things that are non-essential. Then he says, work from home if you can. Again, like, well, the same applies. And wash your hands, you know, which we know. And then he talks about what they are doing. They're going to massively step up testing and they're going to put out a public information campaign. A public information campaign now? What was happening last week? Oh yeah, there was all that mixed messages and sources talking about this and that. I do make a point about that in my previous video. I go into way more detail, so check that out. Anyway, so he talks about continuing to do the right things at the right time and that they are following scientific advice. So he is clearly stating, because he knows that people are like, why is Europe doing this and we're doing this? Like, I know that this is the other thing I should say, there isn't one opinion in science. So maybe the British government scientists are persuasive, but we want to know why they're following that advice. And Europeans are following a different side of the coin. Anyway, so he kind of justifies the response again, talking about doing the right things at the right time, following the advice. And then we come to the bit that we've all been waiting for, the announcement on schools. Okay, so he was talking about how there's always been this trade-off in managing the virus, and it was always about the right time. And he says that closing schools was of limited value, and that they're safe places and all this stuff. And it has been under constant review. So he's reassuring again. Anyway, he says that we need to apply further downward pressure to the upward curve. These are the actual words that he used. And schools will be closed from Friday. So not tomorrow, from Friday. So that's another whole day to run affections across the country. But whatever, what am I? I'm not a doctor or scientist. Anyway, so schools will be closed on Friday. But any schools, obviously public healthcare workers, then we've got police, any people that they want to keep in work. So this is, again, this isn't official. This is like, if you can stay at home, stay at home. But essentially as well, we also need people at work. We need people on transport. We need people in the supermarkets. We need healthcare workers. We need police. Of course, these are essential industries. But then he says that that the schools need to make provisions for these parents and keep the kids in school. So what he's actually saying is that there will be less kids at school rather than no school and everybody going home. So I don't know, for me, I would like to see what advice the schools are getting. If anybody's a teacher there, if you could tell me what is the official government communication with schools, that would be really, really interesting. Because for me, there's a few questions here. Anyway, then he rounds it off. This is at the same time as Gavin Williamson, the Education Secretary, is giving a briefing in the House of Commons, which I didn't watch. I watched Boris Johnson's update to the press because I thought that would probably contain a little bit of everything and give the government messaging, which is what I'm interested in. Anyway, he finishes by saying thanks to everybody for the efforts and sacrifices and complying and making these sacrifices. What? Thanks? There are so many questions. Like, we still have questions from yesterday about the economic measures. We have questions about what's going to happen to statutory sick pay, what's going to happen to renters. Anyway, I will leave it here because I have another video which goes into all of that. So I made this just quickly to get in there. If you like it, please give me a like, please give me a subscribe. It really helps. I have been in quarantine, as I said, for 4 days now. I am doing okay, but the flat gets smaller and smaller each day. Sorry for my chaotic background and chaotic delivery, but yeah, I did jump in here right away. Tell me what you think. Tell me how you feel about it. Tell me if you know what you're going to be doing Thursday and Friday. Tell me how you're managing, and please tell me your kind of individual response to this and how you are going to do it. Do you think it's too much, too little? Do you think I'm being too heavy on the government? I'd love to know. Again, thank you. My name's Lily, and stay safe and wash your hands, everybody, please. Bye.